Hey there folks, this is GreenXI welcoming you to the Green Vlog. Today I want to talk about my top 20 games of all time. Obviously I'm gonna forget one or two along the way. I mean, who knows what would have made it in there. As well as that, I found top 20 was quite hard to think of. I was originally gonna do a top 10, but it was like, oh my god, I couldn't do a top 10. So, top 20, we're gonna start now. I'm gonna start with the Sony games. I want to keep it in some sort of order. Starting with... This isn't in any sort of order, by the way, in the sense of top 1, top 2, my first favourite, second favourite kind of thing. It's just any order. Alundra. This is for the Sony PlayStation. And it's like a Zelda game with really bloody dark undertones and much more difficult puzzles. It's about this central village where the villagers start getting sick one by one and have to go into their dreams to try and sort out their nightmares and bring them back to good health kind of thing. Otherwise they'll die. There's also dungeons out on the overworld where you can explore, find more health, find more different types of items that are really good for you for the adventure. So that's Alundra. Next up, Grandia for the PS1. As well. They're all going to be for PS1 until I say otherwise, really. This is a traditional JRPG, but the battle system is very different. The characters are really likeable. You're going to be having different characters throughout the game. You don't choose your party. They just come in and out of the party kind of thing. Sort of like Final Fantasy IX Disc 1 and 2. Around there. So, yeah, you're this boy called Justin. You go out on this big adventure to see the world. That's the kind of story. You take along Sue, this little girl who sort of sings during battle. Or, if not sings, she just jokes about. She has different attacks that implement status ailments, status boosts and things like that. I don't know how to explain it, why I like this game so much. But I think it's mainly because it's a JRPG that isn't too much like other JRPGs. It is traditional in every sense, it's turn-based and everything, but there's something about how the story is told that I really like. It's 2 discs as well, so it's a long game. Next up, we have got Final Fantasy VII. I bet a lot of people could have seen this one coming. I think everyone knows the sort of reasons I could give why I like Final Fantasy VII. I like the cast of characters. Everyone knows that it's a JRPG. It's got 3 discs for PS1. It's also out on Steam, HD. I like the cast of characters. The music is stunning, some of the best from any video game. The graphics are dated now, they would be, but at the same time, they're still good enough. And yeah, the bosses are really fun to beat as well. Yeah, it's definitely a dated game, but it's still one of the best JRPGs out there. Next up, funnily enough, Final Fantasy VIII. Now a lot of people, this is a Marmite JRPG. A lot of people hate it, but a lot of people love it. I love it because, once again, the cast of characters, except for 1 or 2 of them, I'm not that fussed about Zell or Selphie, really. But otherwise, the story is told in such an interesting way, and a way that was so advanced for its time. The cinematics, you wouldn't have seen cinematics of this quality on the PS1 back in those days. Sorry, I've just eaten. And everything about it just seems to work so well. If you get the Steam version, the one complaint that a lot of people have about this game is the draw system. Get the Steam version and drawing is a lot faster because you can speed up the battles. You can automatically press a button. You can press a button and it'll automatically give you the basic spells to junction to yourself. You know, so you won't have to draw too much until the end of the game, maybe, where you need the best spells to boost your stats the most. I highly recommend this one as well, Final Fantasy VIII. To any JRPG fan. I mean, I'm sure most JRPG fans will have tried it at least once anyway. Probably. We'll get to more modern games as we go along, by the way. Final Fantasy IX. This one has this is my favourite Final Fantasy, possibly my favourite game of all time. this or Alundra, they're probably competing for the best games, in my opinion. Final Fantasy IX has the cast of characters where even the most pointless character, or one of the most pointless characters, is at least funny, is at least interesting to look at, is like a pincushion. That's what the character is, who makes jokes and laughs, and there's sort of fat jokes going on a lot with him or her. You never even know the gender. So there's also this big story that's so dark, even though it seems like such a light-hearted game, looking at the characters, looking at the art style, the character designs. But the underlying story is so dark. There's so much death, there's so much war, there's so much... Even the villain, you can sort of understand where he's coming from. That's the sign of a good villain. Kuja is one of those villains. You can see where they come from. You can see why they're going insane. You can see it along the way. You know, they progress into madness kind of thing. So that's Final Fantasy IX, typical JRPGs, turn-based, and it takes a lot of elements from the old Final Fantasies, like 4, you know, Final Fantasy 4, 5, 6, some of the others. So there's that. Let's move on to, sticking with Sony, I want to go to PS3. One of my favourites is Heavy Rain. This goes against everything that I like in a video game. I don't like games that don't have much gameplay, but Heavy Rain has such a plot that it's like a murder mystery, and that's something I'm really into. And each of the characters can die along the way depending on your decisions, or they can all live at the end. And you even get like a gold trophy at the end to show that maybe you should be trying to keep them alive. Or you can try and go through the game killing off every character. That's interesting as well. And have the villain win. You can actually have the villain win. You get different endings. There's like 30 odd different endings, I think, technically, but a lot of them are pretty similar. So yeah, it's like a QTE game. Pretty much all the gameplay is QTE. You do a bit of walking around as well, but it's mostly about the characters, the dialogue, the story, the plot progression, and what decisions do you make to impact the game. I highly recommend it. It's the best game for definite of this kind. If you've missed out on this, then I think you've missed out of one of the PS3 classics, in my opinion. Why it beats Beyond Two Souls, which is by the same developers, came out last year sometime. It just has so much more to it. It's less confusing. It tells the story in a better way, in my opinion. Next up, 3D Dot Game Heroes. This is like Zelda, but it's a Sony version of Zelda. You make your own little character out of sort of Lego blocks ish and you go around the world map finding towns, finding dungeons, and earning your medallions until you get to the end where you beat the last boss. Along the way, it's actually optional if you save the princess. Like in Zelda, you have to save the princess, but in this, it's actually optional. So it's character creation. There's so much creativity can go into it, and it reminds me of Minecraft in the sense that everything around the world looks so blocky, so sort of Lego-y. And I like the soundtrack as well. I use it in a lot of my videos, my vlogs and stuff, and I probably have you as well. I probably have for this video. I haven't actually decided before going into it. Next up, Catherine. This is like a visual novel where once again you choose which characters live and die. You choose which ending you get. It's like a puzzle game as well. There's a tower climbing mini game, which are the puzzles. Reminds me of Cubert or Cube, what was it called? That really old game where you jumped around blocks diagonally and had to go up towers and avoid enemies, collect stuff. Reminds me of that a little bit in the puzzles. The boss stage is where it gets amazing though, where you try to climb and solve the puzzles while there's just like giant demon baby or giant different things for different bosses are chasing you up the tower, and if you get caught you get killed, and it's really freaky when that happens. The rest of it is like, there's two Catherines. One is your girlfriend, currently, and one is this woman who's trying to mess up your relationship. I just realised the cover looks really slutty. I realised it before, but I mean, while showing it you. Yeah, it's not really that sort of game. There's not that much sex and stuff in it. But even still. I recommend it to people who like visual novels, Japanese-style visual novels, because it's really weird. It's typical Japanese weirdry going on in this game. Next up. Okay, yeah. this, Final Fantasy 10 and 10-2, I wasn't sure whether to do the PS2 version or this one, but I suppose this one's like, it is the better version. The PS2 version is a bit worse, in that this has better graphics, better music, or different music, rather than better music. Final Fantasy 10, typical JRPG again. The turn-based battle system is slightly different this time around, in the sense that you can use all the characters you get in your party by just switching out whenever you like. The enemies have specific weaknesses, so you have to switch your party around to allow yourself to kill the bosses. Otherwise, some bosses you just won't get through unless you use a lot of creativity on the sphere grid, which is instead of the leveling system, you travel around like a game board, like you're playing a board at home. What are they called? Board game. A board game at home. So yeah, there's Final Fantasy 10 and 10-2. Let's move on. That's my only Vita game that's on here. Next up, my only N64 game, and that is Banjo-Kazooie. This is a game that I love and have Let's Played if you want to check it out. It's a 3D platformer, sort of like Super Mario 64 kind of thing, where the hub of the world, it's sort of like fairy tale-ish in that the main villain is a witch who rhymes a lot, and she likes her poetry. She tries to stop you every step of the way. And there's different worlds to go into. Sort of like in Super Mario 64, you had different paintings to go into. This has different sort of worlds, like a marsh, a snowy Christmas place, a sandy desert world, that sort of thing. But there's something about it that Ray just did so right. The music sort of... It's the same soundtrack all the way through the game, but it changes slightly to fit each theme, each world theme. And I love it. There's so much humour in it. Yeah. Next up, the only GBA game. Although I'm going to show you the DS case because I haven't got the GBA case box anymore. Mario and Luigi, but it's not Partners in Time I'm trying to look at. It is Superstar Saga, which is sort of like Paper Mario in that it has the Nintendo humour. JRPG again. This time you only have 2 characters and you have to time your attacks really well, otherwise you're not going to beat the enemies or the bosses. You'll just end up hurting yourself instead of actually hurting the enemy. There's so much humour, so many different little dungeons and stuff, and that's about all I can say really. I highly recommend it, just for the villain if nothing else, Cackletta. She's a weird one. Next up, my only 3DS game in my top 20. That is Zelda Ocarina of Time. Everyone knows Zelda, and this is the better version of it on the 3DS. You run around the world, you go to different temples, you meet loads of different interesting characters, and you defeat loads of interesting bosses. It's sort of hack and slashy in a sense, only there aren't that many enemies, so you have to sort of focus on how to kill each little enemy the best way. So it's not really hack and slash in that sense, but it's that sort of battle system. It's not like a RPG where you go into turn-based and stuff like that. You just attack. Yeah. So that's Ocarina of Time. One of the best Zeldas out, but not my personal favourite, even though a lot of people seem to think it's their favourite. Seem to find it their favourite. Let's move on to GameCube games. I've only got 2 of them, even though I do love a lot of them, but this is a top 20 list, so I have to try and get it down a bit. Phone. Killer 7, I've Let's Played this as well, if you want to have a look. It's a first-person shooter, but it's not the typical first-person shooter, because it's a horror game as well, where you have 7 personalities inside yourself, and you can switch personalities pretty much whenever you want. Some chapters you can't switch into certain ones because of story reasons or because you haven't unlocked them yet. This cutscene, cel-shaded, is all very cel-shaded. Sort of reminds me of 13 XIII. That was another shooter that was for PS2 and maybe GameCube as well. 18 rating for a reason. Lots of blood, lots of death, lots of gang, lots of religion talk. Not necessarily being the best thing in the world. That's what's implied in this game. I highly recommend it, but everything, the soundtrack, the graphics, the plot, it's just so good. I don't know what else to say. Next up, this is a weird one because I never actually completed it, even though it's one of my favourites. Skies of Arcadia Legends. This was a Dreamcast game, ported to the GameCube. The graphics look a little bit prettier. There's a bit of added content to do with a pirate in the sky while you're flying around. Typical JRPG in the sense that the battles are turn-based. But at the same time, you can switch your weapons in battle, change them colours, and change the elements of the weapons so that you can hit the elemental weakness of the enemies and things like that. Change your spells. The party that you can get, such interesting characters. This is something I've been interested in Let's Playing at some point, but I've never completed it, so I've been a little bit anxious about it, so I've never done it. So, there's also sky battles, because you've got airships. We go around and destroy other airships in the sky, because you equip your airship with different weapons and armour and stuff. Sort of like the gummy ship from Kingdom Hearts. It's that sort of thing going on. The battles end like it, but you change your ship sort of like it, in a way. Next up, we're going to go for Wii games. Starting with Beat the Beat Rhythm Paradise. Let's play this, and it's loads of mini games, that's all it is. It's a DS game as well, which came out before it, but is very different. This one, you use the Wiimote completely, but you always use just A and B. Just A and B to get through the entire game. It's rhythm based, so you have to be able to pinpoint the beats in the game, otherwise you're going to find it very hard to unlock new ones. Can you see that? Right, okay. You can get the general vibe of it just from the back cover. Just press A and B, and they're the different types of mini games. If you like the music, you're going to love this game. If you don't like the music, you're going to hate it. I loved it. Next up, Zelda Twilight Princess. I could have said the GameCube version, but I've never played it. I've only played the Wii version. I know the GameCube version is the same, but it's everything reversed. You've got the sword in the different hand, and barely any differences otherwise, I don't think. Graphically, I don't think it's much different. I don't know. This starts off so slow, but it grows into such an amazing RPG when you're going through the desert at night, when you're going through the water temple that's actually good. Can you imagine it? An RPG. It's not an RPG, but some people say it is. Where you go into a water dungeon and actually enjoy it, you know? There's a bloody amazing couple of bosses in the game. The ice and snow dungeon is one of my personal favourite Zelda dungeons of all time. Highly recommended if you like Zelda. You get to turn to a wolf and sort of sniff around and... I don't know what else to say. The soundtrack is stunning, just like every Zelda game. They always know how to do that perfectly in Zelda. So, that's that. Next up, Resident Evil 1 Remake. This is for the GameCube as well. They're both pretty much the same, except that this allows for 60Hz as well as 50Hz in the UK. In the US, I expect you could have 60Hz as well then. And as well as how you can use a couple of different controllers. GameCube, Wii Pad, Wii Remote Pro. Yeah, the classic controller sort of thing. Everyone knows Resident Evil. This is the first game it was remade. Complete overhaul graphically. There's loads more rooms in the hotel, mansion. And not loads more rooms at all. A couple more rooms. Loads of puzzles. You get to go into the graveyard behind the mansion. There's loads of different extras. I highly recommend this. This is the perfect version of Resident Evil 1. There's no point in going back to the classic version for PS1 or DS if you got this, in my opinion. Next up, in the same vein, we have Resident Evil 4 for the Wii. The best version of Resident Evil 4 so far. PS3 version went wonky with the music, and the graphics seemed worse, even though they were HD. So this is the Wii version. It's got the Wii Remote controls, which they suit it perfectly. It's one of the few games where I'd prefer to use a Wii Remote over a controller, an actual controller. So that says something. I mean, you're Leon Kennedy from Resident Evil 2. You go to Spain. You collect pesetas for upgrading your weapons around the place. You kill off villagers who are Ganados, not zombies. Although it's debatable whether they are just mutated zombies, enhanced zombies. What else is there to say? Stunning soundtrack once again, especially the save room music, which is strange to think. Not save room music, the save file music while you're saving on the typewriter. Although, even though it has typewriters, you don't use ink ribbons. You just save however much you want, basically. It's split into chapters. There's loads of amazing characters. One of my favourite villains of the Resi series is Salazar. Salazar, he's not there, but Salazar is this little midget who owns a castle, and the castle you have to trek around for 2 chapters, and that's a long time in the game, 2 chapters. I love it so much. It's possibly my favourite Resident Evil game, but I could say that about any of them. I had to limit it for this collection thing, but I could say it about any of them, really. Next up, the last Wii game, Super Smash Bros. Brawl. This, a lot of people say that Melee is better, but I prefer this. Just because just because there's so many more characters, so many more stages, there's online battles, which has actually gone offline now, unfortunately, because Nintendo has taken down all their servers for Wii and DS. So you have to move on to the 3DS and Wii U. I really forgot the name of the console then. What else is there to say? It's got all the typical Nintendo characters. You punch, you kick, you fight, you jump around the stage, you use items to throw at enemies and everything. Everyone knows Super Smash Bros. Is still a project that used to be, and Sony copied it obviously with Sony All-Star Battles or something like that for the PS3, and a couple of other companies have tried to copy it as well, but none of them have been half as good as Smash Bros. With the new Smash Bros. Coming out for 3DS and Wii U soon, I am extremely excited, and I just don't know which version to buy. It's hard to tell, because I know all my mates will be getting the 3DS version, but I like to be sitting at the TV screen and playing, and have a proper controller rather than the 3DS controls. It's hard to decide, so... This is the last game. Yeah, this is the last game. The 20th, but not in any order. Zelda Wind Waker HD. I haven't completed this yet, but I've completed the GameCube version. This version has much better graphics, definitely the better version of the two. It has loads of new content. Like a main complaint about Wind Waker was that everyone hated the sailing section where you had to collect the Triforce pieces and make it back into a whole one. Well, with this, you can sail around the sea with a special sail that they added for the Wii U version that goes fast as hell, and you don't even have to change the wind direction or anything like that. You can still use the old sail, slow one, if you want it to be more like the GameCube version, but I don't see why why you would do that. There's that cel-shaded Marmite Zelda game that I love so much. So that's my top 20 collection. I've got 12 games that deserve an honourable mention, but I'm only going to list them out. I'm not going to talk about them or anything. We got Flower over the PSN network because it's so artsy and everything. I love it. Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2. Everyone knows Silent Hill. The horror game, which is psychological rather than action horror like Resident Evil, is my favourite because of the cast of characters in the game. There's Tales of Symphonia. The only Tales game that I've 100% enjoyed, but at the same time, it's definitely one of my favourite games. I just wish I could have put it in my top 20. I probably could have pushed something out for it. I don't know. It's hard. Zelda Four Swords Adventures, which... I got it by you actually. I might as well show you. Yeah, there it is. Oh. It's a multiplayer game where it uses the GBA link. But you can play it on your own as well. Perfectly fine. I like playing it on my own. You change your inventory items via finding them on the world map instead of having an inventory screen like other Zelda games. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's amazing. It's an amazing little 2D Zelda. Looks like Link to the Past, but shinier and stuff. I like it. Next up is Hotel Dusk, a DS game, which is like a visual novel, really short, couple of hours, maybe 5, somewhere between 5 and 10 hours, but not 10. Between 5 and 8 maybe. Visual novel, you're this murder detective, or you used to be, and now you're staying in a hotel to sell some crap, and you sort of come across loads of these interesting characters who've done all this horrible stuff in their past, even the innocent looking ones, and you have to try and discover what they've done wrong, why they've gone downhill in their lives. And I think there was a murder at one point where you figure out, like, I don't spoil it because it's a story-based game, so I'll just leave it at that. It's a really good game where the art style is probably the best thing about it, because it's all grainy and LA Noirish, but not like the game. Like, it's all browns, blacks and whites, and the characters are cel-shaded. Not cel-shaded. They're like drawn in black and white, but they still have loads of character. It's hard to explain, but it's amazing. Another Code. That's for DS as well. Similar sort of game. Couple of hours long, visual novelish, but you have puzzles which you have to solve along the way through the visual novel. You explore a mansion on a distant island and try and find out about your history. You're this girl called Ashley, and you meet a ghost boy, who helps you through the mansion, helps you discover who you are. A couple of different endings. I love it so much. And it's made by Sing, who aren't around anymore, unfortunately. But there is a sequel for Another Code, which isn't quite as good, but still, if you like the characters, you'll probably like that enough. And there's also a sequel for Hotel Dusk, which wasn't quite as good, called The Last Window, which once again by Sing, who have gone bust. Next up, Ico. Ico for PS2 and PS3 if you got the HD remaster. You're this boy who climbs around this ancient ruins of a castle with a girl who you're trying to protect. That's all there is to it, really. It feels like one big Zelda dungeon. A couple of hours long again, maybe 5. It's a trophy for doing it in, I think, under 2 hours, so you can do it really quickly if you're really good at it and played it a couple of times too. Next, Danganronpa, another visual novel for the PS Vita. I think there's, how many are there? 12, 13 students, each of them with a special recognition, special identity. One is the ultimate baseball star, one's the ultimate clairvoyant, the ultimate Lolita, the ultimate... your main character, the ultimate lucky person who's been put in this school with all the others, and they're killing each other off one by one, trying to figure out who did it. If they don't figure out who did it, then they all die except for the one who did the murder, and he can escape. You know, they're all trapped in the school. It's amazing. There's an anime out there as well, which is really good. It is a good representation, even if it is a little bit rushed, but at the same time, if you can't be asked to play a game, then just watch anime. Next up, Persona 4. Everyone knows the Persona series. Typical JRPG. You go into a TV world and you have turn-based battles trying to get through and save a person who has been taken into the TV world to be killed. It's known for its art style, it's known for its characters, it's known for its music. It's really modern world, Japanese J-pop, loads of that sort of stuff in it. Final Fantasy Tactics for the PS1 and for the PSP was remade, which is obviously the better version. It's easier. If you'd like a challenge, then go for the PS1 version. If you like a little bit of an easier time with less level grinding, go for the PSP version. PSP version has cinematics and a couple of bits of new content and stuff, as well as Balthier from Final Fantasy 12, Cloud from Final Fantasy 7, although he was in the PS1 version as well. It's a JRPG, but it's sort of grid-based, turn-based, where you sort of move your character, sort of like Fire Emblem kind of thing. Oh my god, I didn't realise I was going on for so long. Next one! Mario Kart 8. This could have gone into my favourite games of all time, but I was thinking, maybe it's only in my favourite games of all time because... Maybe it's only there because it's new, and I'm really enjoying it now because it's new. You know, I'm addicted at the moment. So I didn't put it in the top 20, just in case after a couple of weeks I don't enjoy it quite as much. Double Dash could have got in here as well. I mean, Phoenix Wright, the first one, Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright. The first one was the best, but they're all good. They're all well worth playing. Visual novel, once again, where you are a court lawyer, defendant, who's trying to defend your defend your... the person who needs defending, that's the word. So, you have to collect evidence in the investigation phases, look around the places where the murders happened, and then defend your person in court with all the evidence that you found. Yeah, so that's my top 20 list. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you again in a bit with whatever else I'm uploading at the moment. I think Resident Evil 5 is probably on the go. Let's play Resident Evil 5. Bit of Mario Kart as well if you want to have a look at that. I'll be putting that up every now and again. If you have any discrepancies with my top 20, check them down in the comments. I mean, I'd love to see some other games that other people really like and find out what ones I should have put in the list but didn't. I'd love to see, because I know this top 20 isn't the top 20 that would always be my top 20 because it changes so much. You know, you can't make your list of favourite games and think that it'll always stay the same. So, it's been Green X. Hope you've enjoyed. See you again next time, folks.